So when we are in the nunnery or in the together with the ordained sangha, we always have a great joy, especially if we're coming to big teachings with a teacher like His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And even if it's really cold, often he teaches in Bodh Gaya in January, and people show up, and we stay in sometimes tents that aren't heated or in rooms that aren't heated, but everyone's always laughing and rejoicing, and it's really a very tangible sense of happiness, a very embodied sense of happiness, and a really embodied sense of being in the moment, being aware that this is a very precious moment, that life is moving, that we don't know, how long our life will last, but in this moment, there's just the opportunity to be joyful. And this is one of the most beautiful qualities of the culture of the Tibetans and of the Himalayan region peoples, is that they're used to very hard living in terms of the physical material world, but that doesn't come into play in their minds. They're really there inwardly, always in happiness, always in joy. And if something happens difficult, they're always immediately right there with compassion, first to oneself and then to others. So this, I think, at this time in our lives, as we're mixing and coming in contact with other cultures, the East and the West, the North, the South, it's so important. Even though the media doesn't cover these kinds of beautiful activities of, thousands of people gathering for teachings, this has been happening for years. From 2019, 2020 was the last time His Holiness and tens of thousands of people were gathering in Bodh Gaya, but that had been going on for the whole decade. Every decade he'd been giving teachings there, and sometimes 50,000, 70,000 people would be showing up. So this doesn't make the news anymore, which is a little bit unfortunate, but just because the good news isn't shown doesn't mean it's not still happening. So with our meditation practice, we always start with rejoicing. We always think like how wonderful it is, to have an interest in peace and loving kindness and happiness, an interest in sorrowless bliss. This is another way to think of bodhicitta, the awakened mind, that's completely purified of any kind of negative stains. We say that the mind in Tibetan Buddhism is compared to space, infinite, clear, radiant, pure. And just like space, although clouds can come into space and airplanes can fly through, and even nuclear bombs have gone off in space, those things don't affect the nature of space. They don't taint the pure, genuine nature of the essence of space. And similarly, like our minds are often in the old ancient texts compared to like space, pure, radiant, beginningless, endless, non-physical. And although we have many things going on in our minds, we all know that very well, many thoughts, some are very, very beautiful, beneficial, some are neutral, some are really not very kind, especially to ourselves. Negative critical self-talk or doubt, fear, anger, states of mind that don't bring us happiness, don't bring us into a clear present moment, that kind of limit our sense of our true nature of mind. But those events, just like clouds, thoughts are like the clouds. They arise in the mind, they disappear. And thoughts are not by themselves good or bad. Even really having anger, it's not negative. In experience anger, it's just not helpful, because it doesn't bring us happiness. It doesn't bring anyone else happiness. And it is often a state of mind that arises in the mistaken appearances of reality. So anger is something the Buddha said, no, it's not a natural part of mind. It's something that arises through habit, but we can remove that habit by training in loving kindness, by training in tolerance, by training in wisdom and compassion. So these are all qualities that we want to bring to our meditation, of course, because if our mind is ruled by loving kindness, ruled by wisdom and compassion, ruled by happiness and joy, with equanimity, with serenity, if we're coming from that as our own starting point, no matter where we're moving into community, whether it's with a partner, a family member, a colleague, a stranger, a public event, it doesn't matter, because if our mind is ruled by these positive, very clear qualities of its own essence, then we can go anywhere. I mean, the only thing that we're guaranteed to have with us actually wherever we go is our mind. So as Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo likes to say, then it makes good sense to make that a good friend. So if we're a good friend to ourselves, we'll be a good friend to everyone, everywhere we go, to all creatures, not just other human beings, but all kinds of sentient life who are just like us, also wanting a happy mind, wanting to feel comfortable in the presence of whomever they're with, whether it's a little mosquito or a cat or a wild animal or our fellow human beings. Of course, mostly our fellow human beings are the ones who are really these days showing so much pain and suffering. And so if we can bring a peaceful mind and a compassionate heart wherever we go with loving kindness, with altruism. So altruism in this sense is selfless. It's that it doesn't matter who you're doing something for. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter even why you're doing it. It's just that you're doing it out of a genuine act of kindness, a genuine act of compassion with the wisdom of reality. And you're there for whomever is going to benefit from that act. You're not keeping score and you're not telling people about it. So tonight we're going to do an opening prayer. We're going to take our refuge as we usually do, because refuge means safety. And we also generate this mind of bodhicitta. Bodhi means awakened and citta means mind. And the awakened mind is always much more concerned about creating the happiness of others. And even knowing that there's a lot of confusion and difficulties, willing to take the suffering of others onto oneself and exchange one's own happiness for giving that happiness away and taking on the difficulties of others. And so when we go for refuge, why do we do that? Well, because we're not making up this practice on our own. This is a practice called the Dharma that the Buddha found through his own quest, deep quest, to find the answer and way out permanently from suffering. So this isn't just a temporary fix like getting our favorite food or watching our favorite movie or running into our best friend, going away on a nice holiday. Those are all nice things to do. And the Buddha didn't say we can't do those things. He just said, be aware of the fact that those are very temporary happinesses. They have a very finite shelf life. And that's not going to bring this kind of deeper ultimate contentment, happiness, and satisfaction that is the nature of the mind. So he said what we have to do first is understand that there have been beings that have cleansed their minds completely of what are called adventitious stains, which means difficult states of mind that get created out of ignorance, selfishness, greed, lust, habits, compulsions, we could say, and also aversions, things that we push away from. Also out of pride and conceit that doesn't recognize that actually how little do we really know about the true nature of the reality. I mean, we're on these computers and smartphones all the time, but who really knows how they work? I mean, maybe a very small, minute people who know how to create them, but that's not us, I don't think. And so, having humility, if you know about computers, then a car or an airplane or a spaceship, or how doctors and nurses do surgery. We can think many, many things that we don't know to keep our mind humble so that we don't come under this kind of unhealthy pride of conceit. And then jealousy and envy, like instead of looking at people who are having some good causes and conditions for happiness in life, instead of being resentful of them, rejoice. What if everybody's happiness was your happiness? But what do we tend to do? We tend to focus on the negative. There's a war, there's a disease, there's some celebrity slapping somebody. And what do we miss in the meantime? Well, there are people living in peace all over the world, in many more countries than are at war. There are beings who are very healthy all over the world, many more healthy than suffering from serious disease right now. There are celebrities being very kind to others there in the audience, helping people who are afflicted with cognitive disabilities, being very compassionate, right, live on screen, but we don't pick up on that. We hone in on the things that are shocking and negative. And why? Because that's not our true nature. It's shocking because that's not who we usually are. We're not wanting to be under war and anger and aggression, violence. We're not wanting disease, so we do our best to stay healthy. We're not walking up to people in the middle of social gatherings and assaulting them. So it's shocking because that's not what most of us are doing most of the time. So we should recognize that. But the Buddha said, also be honest with yourself and recognize still where you lose your temper, where you still have impulses sometimes to be frustrated and impatient and aggressive with your speech, with your mind, judging people, criticizing them, putting them down, where your mind gets drawn to the negative instead of staying neutral and content and not taking sides or looking to see like how really kind and compassionate most creatures are. So the Buddha is saying this is why we go for refuge, because our own minds still have a lot of work that we need to do. And this is why we practice the meditation, to sit with a gratitude to ourselves that we're interested in growing, because meditation means growing, but to sit with honesty that we don't really have the full Buddha nature yet, but some beings have Buddhahood. There are many Buddhas that have already come and attained Buddhahood. And although we didn't meet Shakyamuni Buddha, we have the Dharma, which is his formula for how he attained Buddhahood, the formula of how we cleanse the mind completely and move all these afflictive emotions, the ones that cause us difficulties, out of our mind. Well, how do we do it? Well, we be mindful. We notice when they come up, we catch them, and then we give the antidote. So if anger's coming up, we give awareness. Oh, some frustration, some anger's coming up. My habit of anger's coming. How do we deal with that? First, we have tolerance. We allow it in our own mind to be witnessed. Then we have the antidote of being kind and loving. We don't have to analyze it. Why is it coming? Where did it come from? We just recognize, oh, it's just an emotion. It doesn't have any true existence anywhere. Maybe you know what brought it up and you just say, well, I'm just going to sit here with it for a few minutes, breathe into it, breathing in, breathing out, being aware of breath. And when you shift your awareness, that anger and frustration automatically has to dissolve, because you really can only focus in on one thing at a time. So instead of this strong reactivity to the anger, you just go strongly to breathing in and breathing out, reminding yourself anger is not beneficial, not helpful. Now I'm just practicing being patient and loving and kind to my own self. And while you do that, you have wisdom, because anger is the same for everybody. It catches us, it takes over the mind, then we're caught in the habit, doesn't make us happy, doesn't make anybody else happy. But by noticing that, we're able to transform it. That's meditation, that's mindfulness, that's wisdom and compassion. Fear, we can look at fear. Well, often we're being cultivated to have fear of the future. I mean, we're not even there yet. Who knows if we'll arrive? And what does that do to our present moment? It keeps us kind of in a little agitated state. The mind always has a little low-grade anxieties, thinking about what's going to happen, what still needs to happen next, what hasn't happened, what could happen. And we're not living in peace. We're giving up our peace of mind to even that kind of low-grade anxiety. So we have to allow, again, noticing, having compassion, asking ourselves, is this a healthy state of mind? What to do to give an antidote? How do we bring about the peace? Well, first we notice, again, we go to the breath, breathing in, breathing out. And so the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are beings who have purified their mind stream completely. They don't fall underneath these afflictive emotions anymore of fear or of anger, of pride or jealousy, not of lust and desire, and not of hatred. So this is why we go for refuge, and this is why we cultivate bodhicitta, this mind of enlightenment, because the Buddha said we all have this capacity to become enlightened, and we all will at one certain point in time attain that complete peace. And once those habits are removed from the mind and the true nature is realized, they'll never arise again. So it's quite why we call it our practice. But like everything else that leads to perfection, Mahamudra means the great perfection. Everything that we do well in this life, we've had to practice. So whatever you've done for your career, for your profession, to drive a car safely and not harm beings, not get in accidents, not have tons of speeding tickets, you've had a lifelong of practice. So meditation's the same way. But when we go for refuge and we cultivate our bodhicitta, our mind of awakening, what we're doing is we're depending on the minds that have already reached that. We were depending on the Buddha. We're depending on our teachers, on His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Khenso Rinpoche, Sitan, Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, these beings who have been practicing for their whole lifetimes, from a young age, taking robes, taking vows, and only making this their main goal, their main practice of this whole lifetime is following the Dharma. So we know we have a valid way to go to depend on these beings and this wisdom for guidance, because it works. This is what's called dependent arising. We go to wisdom that we know, like a recipe. If we're cooking something for wanting the best flavor, we follow the recipe. We don't have to create this on our own. This, for Dharma, in this sense, it's good to follow the recipe. It will be your own experience, because that's the truth of the matter. But following the practice that the Buddha laid out means that it goes to where the Buddha knows it leads. It's not that we're just creating something new and we don't really know where we're going to arrive. So let's cultivate our hearts now. Bring to mind your teacher, your closest, dearest teacher. If you're not a Buddhist, I don't know, some new people are there, you can bring to mind the Buddha, Shakyamuni, or His Holiness Dalai Lama. Or if you don't know or feel relation to that, bring to mind just the sense of a mind that's completely enlightened, which only has positive qualities, has full awakened awareness, and is never under the influence of sadness, negativity, frustration, ignorance, lust, jealousy. And imagine your teacher or guide in front of you, about an arm's length away, at the level of your eyebrows, and only small, like the thumb size, and glowing, made entirely out of light, smiling at you, very happy to join with you in your wish for enlightenment. And if you don't have good visualization, just really feel that their presence, the presence of the enlightened mind, is right there in front of you. The mind that accepts you exactly as you are, that sees that you have Buddha nature, that you're fully 100% worthy of total loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, all the good qualities. And now we take our refuge. Sangye chodan soki chognam la changchu bardu dagni kyapsu chi dagi jinso ki pe sonam ki jola penjir sangye drupar sho. Sangye chodan soki chognam la changchu bardu dagni kyapsu chi dagi jinso ki pe sonam ki Jola Penchir Sangye Drupar Sho. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, until enlightened, I seek refuge. Through merit from giving and the rest, in order to aid all, may I become Buddha. And now you can feel, before we go to the next prayer, that light is radiating directly from this essence of this awakened mind, Buddha, that's in front of you, or your teacher, or His Holiness Dalai Lama, coming to the crown of your head and just infusing your whole body, every cell, every atom, all the space in between, with a beautiful radiant light, cleansing through, cleansing your body, cleansing your speech, cleansing your mind, purifying it. This kind of like rebooting a computer, bringing it back to its essential primordial purity of awakened nature. And now we'll say the four immeasurables. And they're called the four immeasurables because these qualities, just like sentient beings, are limitless, immeasurable numbers of sentient beings throughout space, even on this one planet, who knows, throughout the cosmos, more than what we can count and see. There are immeasurable forms of life. And so we, when we say these four immeasurable prayers, are offering these qualities immeasurably out to all of those life forms. And with that intention in our hearts, the merit and the wish for that to be very pure and genuine profoundly makes the power of this prayer immeasurable. So it's very beautiful, very, very powerful. Simchen tamche de wadang de we yudan them part gyur chi. Simchen tamche dugnel dang dugnel gigyu dang drel ward gyur chi. Simchen tamche dugnel me pe de wadang mi drel ward gyur chi. Simchen tamche ne ring cha dang ni dang drel we tang yom mane part gyur chi. And we'll say the next two in English. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be parted from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from bias, attachment, and hatred. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be parted from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from bias, attachment, and hatred. So these four immeasurable qualities are really, with our refuge, the foundation of the Bodhi mind, of the mind of enlightenment. So Buddha means awakened to these qualities, always being completely available to us. And we'll start looking at this list with the bottom of equanimity. Equanimity just means serenity and peace of mind. And in this case, without bias, it means in your own mind stream, you're creating this as a quality. So as I said before, no matter who you're with, no matter where you go, when you're alone, one of our trainings is when we're alone, guard our mind. When we're with others, guard our speech. So when we're alone, it means paying attention to what are we doing with our mind? Are we being a good friend to ourselves? Are we criticizing ourselves? Or are we believing confidently that we're actually here alive another day today? How wonderful in this life. And with our mind, growing our qualities, growing our wisdom, growing our compassion. So when we're alone, we need this mindfulness of being aware, that we're with our mind is doing, and aware with ourselves with what we're doing. So today I was doing some raking. I was quite aware, but I was also listening to a teaching on YouTube of His Holiness. But as I was raking, I was also saying the prayer, may I sweep away all the sufferings of all sentient beings. So everything we're doing, we can turn into Dharma. This is how we train in the nunneries. When we're eating food, we can be aware how wonderful we have delicious, tasty food available to us. May all beings have delicious, tasty, clean food available to them. When we're taking a glass of water, oh, how wonderful we have clean water that we can drink. May all beings everywhere have clean water to drink. So we're constantly, with Bodhicitta, the mind is constantly thinking about benefiting others. Of course, we ourselves are only one, and we cannot do it ourselves and bring that to everyone. But what we're doing is we're actually training our mind to put the interests of others ahead of ourselves. We're only one. But by cultivating this kind of mind, we're creating qualities that eventually in one lifetime will bring us the capacity to start to really bring all this kind of benefit of freeing beings from suffering, bringing them together with causes and conditions that are only of benefit to them, practicing great ethics and good virtue from our own life. If we're living virtue, then good virtue, causes and conditions will come together for us and will bring others like us together in our path, other virtuous beings. So beings aren't coming to harm us. Beings are coming to help us. And so the more we're cultivating this frame of mind that's genuinely pure motivation, thinking about the happiness of others and wishing this kind of serenity and peace of mind, of course, it's very extremely immeasurably beneficial to oneself. And this is what His Holiness says: if you're going to be selfish, be wisely selfish. This is permitted. This is allowed. We can do this in our practice by thinking only of benefiting others, only being of help and of their happiness. We're automatically then creating equanimity in our own hearts and minds. Our own minds are full then of peace and serenity, of thinking the deep wish, may all beings be free from suffering and its causes. This is the deep compassion. So this first one of may all beings have happiness and its causes. All beings means altruism, and this is the definition of loving kindness. All beings free of suffering and its causes. This means compassion. And all beings means all beings, not labeling some are worthy, some are friends, some are enemies, some are strangers. We don't care about them. Not taking sides in disputes. Of course, we can take sides for justice. We can say, definitely, we don't want war. We want peace. We can call on all sides to sit down and have diplomacy. That's important. We can also say we know people who are looking at life-threatening illnesses are going to make some decisions based on taking some kind of medicine, thinking it will help their lives live longer, and some may decide not to take that kind of medicine, thinking that will help them live longer. So someone with a cancer diagnosis might take chemotherapy, thinking that will be really beneficial and help them to stay alive. Some people with that same diagnosis of cancer might say, no, chemo will not help at all, and I want to stay alive, so I'm going to do different alternative treatments. But their motivation is both because they cherish life. They want to keep their precious human life. So we have to recognize, with compassion, not with judgment, how we would do it, how I would do it. I know best. No, this is the ego inserting itself. Our only practice as genuine practitioners, whether we're a monastic or a lay practitioner, is pure bodhicitta, pure motivation. May all beings be well, may all beings be happy. That's compassion. And then this kind of joy in practice, sorrowless bliss. Never being separated from the root of sorrowless bliss from joy means bodhicitta. Sorrowless bliss is bodhicitta. Did you know that? It's important to know that. That's really the root of the practice is bodhicitta. So we have to know that's our ground that we're going to be rooted in all the time. So if we don't have a strong root, like today, when I was doing my little raking, some of the old plants from the fall that, are just cyclic plants, they easily came right out of the ground. They were finished. They had a short lifespan. They just removed, they were done. But the new ones that are coming up, they were quite resilient. Even when I was raking with a little gentle rake, there was no chance that they were going to come up. They're really rooted. This is what we need in bodhicitta. We need to be really rooted in the bodhicitta. No matter what happens, our bodhicitta will hold us, carry us through, be our life source. So vital, so wonderful. This is why we say Bodhi mind, precious and sublime, because there's nothing more precious, nothing more sublime than having an awakened mind, an awakened heart that has these qualities developed and still developing immeasurably. I mean, often, we'll say, look at His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Nobel Peace Prize winner, born as to a poor farming family out in the rural parts of Amdo of Tibet. Parents didn't really have a lot of literacy. I think his mother didn't read or write at all, but he points to her as his greatest teacher of compassion. I mean, we have to ask ourselves, would it be more important then to really have someone who knew how to read or write, or have a mother that could teach you that kind of compassion? You see, we have to really see what's of lasting value to our happiness. Of course, both are good. We can have literacy and reading and writing, but deep emotional, deep wisdom literacy of endless, infinite compassion. This is the main ingredient of what makes His Holiness the Dalai Lama loved worldwide. Even by 400 million Chinese people, they follow Buddhism. Before COVID, the Chinese scientists were coming to meet with him, and talking at his residence in the Zudakong in the Dharamsala. So compassion is universal. There's nothing politically that will stop it. There's nothing health-wise that will stop it. There's nothing age-wise that will stop it. There's no kind of external change or internal change with the mind of bodhicitta. It's fearless, it's determined, it's committed, it's the ground, it's the mind unshaken. So Jetsima Tenzin Palmo told me once a nice story about when she was growing up in London, she was really interested in Buddhism. It was really hard to get any books about Buddhism because it was in the late 50s and 60s. And she was really fascinated. She wanted to read everything she could. And then someone gave her this great book, and the title of it was Mind Unshaken. And I was like, that's a great title for a book. That's what we need. So, this is what we can go back to. Bodhicitta means the mind unshaken, but it's not the intellectual mind, it's here. Mind in Tibetan Buddhism practice in Vajrayana, mind is thought of here in the heart center. So not in our physical heart, but in a very energetic, deeply intuitive heart. It's located with a feeling quality, with a very aware, alert quality, and a very sensed quality that's coming from a deep, deep place of a universal kind of infinite love and awareness. So of course, intellect and knowledge can interact with that. But here in the West, if we say mind, we often think of brain. But this is not what the Tibetans are talking about with this practice. They're talking about this quality that is non-physical, that's beginningless and endless, that's radiant, pure, luminous, can be developed endlessly. It's omniscient. And so this kind of mind is something in the West that, we really never hear about because we don't know about it that much. We maybe talk about consciousness sometimes, but we don't really even know where consciousness sits. If we say, where's consciousness? You could ask that's like the big elephant in the room when His Holiness the Dalai Lama gets together every few years for the Mind Life Conference to talk about consciousness and mind. Well, where is it? And the West is busy creating contraptions, trying to measure like, well, where does it show up when they're registering, when people are in meditation? They can kind of show neurofeedback from it, but that's not showing mind itself. So this is very profound. This is very important to think about and contemplate during the day. Like, where is mind? What is mind? Very important. And to try to recognize the empty nature of mind is the main goal of the path. So let's do a little bit of silent meditation. Now we're going to go into what's called the shamatha, the calm mind, calm abiding, so that we can connect with this deep, knowing, aware quality. So sit very comfortably. If you're in a chair, yep, you can stretch out before you begin. Just move your body so that your body's open and ready to be very pliant, very comfortable. So the body should be very still, but not stiff. It should be settled in a very nice balance. If you're sitting cross-legged and you're comfortable doing that, that's fine. Otherwise, in a chair, your feet flat on the floor. And just a nice alignment so that the crown of your head is lifting up. Your chin's tipped a little bit downwards. And your eyes are opened anywhere from half open to a quarter open. You have to find out where that's comfortable, but try to leave them open a little bit. This is a special way that we practice our meditation in Mahayana Tibetan Buddhist practice. Tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth, jaw relaxed, a soft smile on the lips. Deep breath in through the nose into the whole body, filling the whole body with the breath and just relaxing now and settling. Letting the physical body settle on the cushion that you're sitting on or the chair. Just finding a very comfortable center point to let the body stay at ease. And using the breath now as a kind of internal massage so that when you breathe in, fill the whole body up with the breath as you breathe in. Everything expands. And when you can no longer breathe in, gently, gently let it exhale through the nose, or if you're really needing to relax, just through the mouth with a nice sound of ah. We can use the sound of ah if we have any tension or need to create more space, because it's a sound of emptiness. The seed syllable in Tibetan is expressing the sound of ah. And it's also inviting the settling of the mind. It says in our training in the text to settle like someone who's resting after completing a long day of hard work that's just now able to relax and let everything go and settle in comfort and satisfaction. Kind of a sense of accomplishment, having done something that now you can just enjoy and relax. So now we'll begin to put the attention on breath, either right beneath the nose as you're breathing in and there's a subtle movement of breath, or a few fingers below the belly button, below the navel, where the diaphragm is rising and falling as you breathe in. Just pick one of those two places to rest your attention. So our meditation now is on breathing, and we're just following the movement, breathing in, either underneath the nostrils or at below the navel. And if we need to settle the mind more, instead of just watching the breath and becoming aware, we can also say, like a little mantra, breathing in, aware of breathing in, breathing out, aware of breathing out, stillness, aware of resting. And with the resting, we can let that become longer after the exhale. And we're not holding our breath, we're just now allowing the body to breathe when it's ready, and we're just watching, cultivating this alert awareness that's very calm and single pointed, and just abiding with the breath as it's moving in and out, and then in the stillness after the out breath. And if thoughts arise, just keep coming back to a breathing in, aware of breathing in, breathing out, aware of breathing out. Stillness, aware of resting. Don't try to stop any other thoughts, just let them kind of drift through and stay with just the breath, just gently guiding the attention back. And if you've been watching and saying aware of breathing in and aware of breathing out, you can stop that and just rest now in awareness. Stay with the breath and the movement, but maybe drop the words, the concepts. Just stay with awareness, watching. The movement of the breath, just on one of those two places. And now let's bring in a little analytical meditation, a bit of insight, vipassana, and investigate where is this awareness that's watching. So we're saying watching, but we're not using the I consciousness to watch. We're using some kind of an inner awareness. Where is this inner awareness? Who is watching? If we say this sense, I am watching, where is this I? The solid sense of self, this ego. What is the sense of I just now in this moment? Does it feel very solid and heavy and present, or is it more diffuse and spacious, more intangible? If we say, who is breathing in? Who is breathing out? And we say, I am breathing in, I am breathing out. Well, where is this I located? We investigate the nature of a merely labeled experience of I, which is made up of so many different aspects that we start to see and let this solid sense dissolve within the awareness and calm abiding of shamatha. We trust that we can loosen our grip and that it's okay. To let this awareness expand and then deeply also investigate sharply, clearly, looking for this solid identity and finding freedom in the not finding. It's not that we're not there at all. It's not nihilism. There isn't a sense that we're completely absent and have no only total fantasy experience. The sense is more to investigate how we actually exist, not as an independent, separate, solid being, but through the experience of mind, through our own perceptions. What we label form, what we label feelings, perceptions, consciousness, sensations, we have to start to investigate these labels. Where are they? What is their nature? Well, firstly, we can see right away that they're quite impermanent. Feelings and sensations change. Our body is changing all the time. The form is changing. Our perceptions are changing. Our opinions, our mind is changing. So we invite ourselves to grow and expand into a greater, more deep sense of self, more aware of how we are, more truthful to the way we exist, which is quite interdependent. Having a body, having breath, having sensations, having some kind of a mind that we don't exactly know where it is, but we know we do have it somewhere because we're using it. So, this interdependent way of existing deeply, deeply shows us that we don't exist in a vacuum as a truly independent being. Our cells are constantly changing. So everything is much more spacious and fluid, evolving, sometimes sloughing off, getting a haircut, trimming our nails. Everything's in process. And with our calm abiding, we start to become more aware and single pointed that this process is actually quite nice and natural to be used to it. That change isn't something to fear. That our wrinkles are something to smile back at, not try to deny. That appearance is only mere appearance, that so much more is going on underneath the surface of the appearance. And to be more spacious and playful with appearance, not to take things, ourselves included, so seriously. When we see how much more changeable things are, we can be more playful, more trusting, more expansive. And therefore, we can enjoy more, allowing the mind to know its true nature of luminous clarity, purity, awareness without wavering, blissful, compassionate, loving, kind, serene, sane. This is what Jetsam would call sane. This is touching in the sanity of the mind. And good, having a very good mind. A good mind, a good heart, good intention, a good motivation, pure motivation to be of benefit to oneself and to others is meaning having a good mind, a warm heart, a peaceful mind, a compassionate heart. So now, before we finish this meditation, let's bring in the power of our intention for this week. We can set our intention to do this practice at least 5 minutes a day, in the morning, each day this week, and in the evening. And if you can do more than 5, 10, 15, 20, but if you can only do 5, then better to do 3 times a day. That you just set aside 5 minutes. You go back into your breath meditation with your awareness, with that investigation. Who is meditating now? That sense of being very present, but very stable in the calm abiding, breathing in, breathing out, very curious, and feeling very joyful in the sense of discovery and of growth, of evolving. This radiant mind, this luminous nature of Bodhicitta. So let's come out of our meditation now. We have a few moments. Maybe there's some question or some comment. Maybe there's something happening in your life that you need want to share something about and get an idea of how to approach it with your meditative mind. This is a chance to ask such things. Oh, I'm so glad that everyone's already attaining Buddhahood. Everything's going great. No difficulties. That's wonderful. That's how I have to think if no one's having any kind of questions. Okay, then I will share some nice story. On Thursday night, this past Thursday, I went with some friends to this world premiere of a movie called Never Forget Tibet. When it gets available online, I highly recommend everybody see it. It's a lot of documentary of His Holiness the Dalai Lama telling the story himself of making the escape from Tibet in 1959, as well as this lovely Indian man who was in the Indian Army and was assigned at the time to go and meet him and receive him, and then hosted him at his house in Bomdila in Arunachal Pradesh. And so after the movie, it was really sweet. A whole group of Tibetans was sitting behind where we were sitting. And our friend Jolie Green, who many people who are here tonight know, was there, and it was nice to see her. But all these Tibetans were in the lobby of the movie theater, and they wanted to take a photo. And then they said, "Oh, Anila, come over and with your friends." So we took a nice photo all together. And then didn't really chat too much, but then out in the parking lot, we connected again. And I said, "Look, where do you people live? I mean, it's wonderful to see some." There were like 20 Tibetans with little children. And I said, "It's like being in Dharamsala." And they laughed because, of course, they'd probably been there as Tibetans. This is like the Mecca of going for Tibetan Buddhist teachings with His Holiness. They said, "Oh, most of us live in Brunswick." I said, "Well, who knew? Never saw you all together like this before." So that was lovely. A couple of them live in Poland, Maine. So we were talking about wanting to do like a group action for Sakadawa. They said, "Well, Anilo, what we usually do for Sakadawa, we started a few years ago, we do animal liberation. And we buy lobsters and we let them go." And I said, "Well, that's wonderful. Saving lives is so virtuous." They said it is, but the problem was the first year we did it, we didn't realize that we couldn't put them in a lake. So they've understood now that the lobsters have to go out to the ocean. So I don't know if they get, maybe they still get good brownie points for having a pure motivation, but instead of saving the lives, those ones didn't necessarily get the kind of liberation they had in mind. Maybe they'll get a better rebirth. So we had a good laugh about that, but we're talking about doing that this year. So anyone who's interested, maybe in May, this year in June is Sakadawa. We'll keep that in mind to meet with them and maybe go out on the Casco Bay mailboat that goes to the different islands and stop somewhere where we can release lots of lobsters. And I said to them, well, we'll do it again this year. And he said, yes. I said, well, we're doing a tree planting campaign. Do you want to do that? He said, I don't know. We're really busy with work. And I said, well, what are you all doing for work? He said, oh, we're all making sushi. And I said, oh, well, hence then you're letting go the lobsters. He's like, exactly. That's why, honey. I said, okay, well, so good that you're making amends with that. But when it comes down to it, if I would say about this, like saving lives is so virtuous, that's the main thing. And people often ask about vegetarianism and what the Buddha had to say about that. And the Buddha, he really did encourage it. He did, but he did not forbid it also. He did not forbid eating meat, but he really encouraged vegetarianism, mostly because it preserves life longer. So it brings healthier life body. All the Indian high sadhus and practitioners would have been eating mostly a vegetarian diet and very sparse, like at a certain level in a practice, you don't need a lot of physical food. But the truth is in the Dharma, the Buddha does say it's better for you to eat vegetarian food, but whatever goes in your begging bowl, don't deny it, don't give it back because you accept whatever's given to you. So in this day and age, though, the thing is that the meat industry is so out of control that it's really important for those of us who eat occasionally meat or fish, fish is meat too. Sometimes people think fish isn't, or birds, that's anything with a face, we could say. If you eat anything with a face, it values its life as well. So it's important then to try to source it ethically, compassionately, and really think about that when you're eating the meat, that you really remember that that was a being's life, and so that you have a respect for that. That's the most important thing, is that just like you cherish your life, everything that lives cherishes its life. And so that we really have that kind of a recognition and do what we can to kind of support and appreciate with humility then that we're involved with, that we don't get too up in arms and judgmental about wars and people killing and doing things like this, because in a sense, when we're eating, we're also participating in a life that's been, maybe not personally killed for us, but still some being's life has been offered so that you can enjoy that tasty food that you like. So please do try to keep that humility. I'm not saying everyone needs to be a vegetarian. I myself am, but it's important that we be mindful about what we're doing with our body, speech, and mind. And also when we're consuming media, again, please try to watch your mind so that you're not choosing the side that's right and the side that's wrong, the good ones, the bad ones. War overall, nobody wants. It's horrible for everybody. And the difficulty with war is that friends can become enemies, enemies can become strangers, strangers can become friends. All of these labels are completely superfluous. As we know from just 60 years ago, Germany was our huge adversary with the Nazis and Japanese. And now today, they're two of our biggest allies. The Russians and the Ukrainians have back and forth different kinds of histories of sometimes being allied, sometimes not. It's very difficult to say always who's right, who's wrong. Yes, I mean, we can say democracy, we can agree in that we want liberty and freedom around the world. And we have to recognize also that in the name of democracy, many, many things have been done that are not so good. So we have to keep a very balanced, even mind. And the main thing is no war, peace, to solve things through diplomacy, through dialogue. Number one important goal. So when we're consuming and watching the media, please, keep a very clear awareness that, as the Buddha said, anything that's in the nature of a compounded suffering entity, meaning anything that hasn't been completely purified of all those afflictive emotions, is in the nature of suffering. This will remain like that, no matter for how long, until the being's minds free themselves entirely of ignorance, hatred, aversion, lust, desire, jealousy. This is, this is why it takes a while, but it's a good project. It's a great practice. So everything we're doing, it's not just when we sit in meditation that it's our practice. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's our practice. And, as Jetsima Tenzin Palmo said, I think many people here have taken the Bodhisattva vows. Bodhisattvas never take a day off. She didn't say just those in robes, so just keep that one also in mind. And, enjoy your practice every day. Enjoy that you have this precious opportunity, this precious human life, precious in the sense that we have interest in the Dharma. The Dharma has the nature of creating Buddhas. If the recipe is followed, when we finish all the ingredients coming together and it's left in long enough that what's going to come out is the Buddha mind. And really, how fantastic. What more could we hope for? So may your practice be of benefit to yourself and to all mother sentient beings. And may you also find that you have joy in your practice. It's so important to have joy and to not take any moment of any day for granted, but to really want to feel, because you have joy, you can share it with everyone, and that others' happiness is a reason for your happiness. So thank you, everybody. And so nice to sit with you and practice with you. And we'll close now. We'll say our dedication. I'll just remind people this Saturday, we have a day-long retreat that we do on Zoom on preparing to let go is the title of it. Again, we try to put a little joy in approaching the topic of death and dying. So we approach it with seriousness, but we also have a confidence that we don't have to be afraid of it. And so please feel free to join us for any part of that on this Saturday. It starts at 10. And yes, let's dedicate our long life prayers. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig remain in life till samsara's end. In particular, I pray for the one who knows all the scriptures with the power of his intelligence to have a long life through the solid strength of his mind and his mastery of life, in order to benefit the teachings and all beings through his good, wholehearted resolve. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. Jangchub Sound, precious supreme Bodhi mind, may it where unborn arise, and where born never decline, but increase forevermore. Mig me se we ter chen chen rezi, di me ken pe wang po jam pel yang. Gang chen ke pe su gen son kappa, lub zang drag pe shabla so wade. So thank you, everybody. And may we all attain Buddhahood for the benefit of every sentient being, and may the world come swiftly to know true peace, immeasurable happiness, and loving kindness, compassion, joy, and serenity. Have a great week.